Good evening. My name is Ron Wilson. As Terry said, I'm the Executive Director over at Royce Learning Center. I want to thank Terry for sharing his personal story, for sharing what he does in the community, and for sharing what United Way does for the community also. He's an inspiration to all of us, and I hope that his fine work continues in the future. As Terry mentioned, there's 54 agencies. I'm here, I'll tell you a little bit about Royce Learning Center tonight, but I'm here to represent all 54 agencies also. I can give you a little bit of personal story about what we do and why funding from United Way has been so important to us over the years. We're located right up, if you have kids you'll know this, we're located right across the road from Star Castle up off Mall Boulevard. So that's how we get directions when people call to come and visit us. Royce was founded by a woman named Harriet Royce back in 1970. And she knew that there were people in the community that were having difficulty with literacy, unable to read, and she knew that a literate community would be a better community. And so she got together with a few people, started Royce, and started working with adults in the community. And about probably it was 1995, there's a school called Chatham Academy that's Royce is the umbrella organization. Chatham Academy is a school that services only children who have learning disabilities, K through 12 school. And Chatham Academy was starting to work with kids. Royce was starting to work with kids, and there were members on both boards, and they said, why are we competing with each other? We can accomplish the same mission if we get together. So in 1995, Chatham Academy and Royce combined. So they wanted to keep both names because both names were known out there in the community, and so they kept it Chatham Academy and Royce Learning Center. So in Royce Learning Center we have three divisions, Chatham Academy being one of them. There's a tutoring center, and there's the adult and community education program. The two programs that United Way has so generously funded over the years is our tutoring center and our adult and community education program. We've been, by the way, the United Way agency for, this is our 45th year being the United Way agency. It goes back to 1975 when we became an agency with United Way. Some of the funding goes to kids. Right? The mission of Royce Learning Center is to provide comprehensive education services to children and adults who have literacy needs and learning disabilities. All right, so two of the programs, we have the tutoring center and the summer school we get funding for. Did you ever see kids when they first start going to school, kindergarten, first grade? Are they slugging along and I don't want to go to school or anything? No, they're a happy group. They can't wait to get to school. School's exciting. But for some of them, what happens after a few years? All right, they're turned off, and all of a sudden school's not so much fun. For many of them, it's because they have a learning disability. All right, and sometimes the teachers and schools don't understand those learning disabilities. And this happy group of kids that you have, they're all young, they're all ready to go. All of a sudden, they're turned off. Okay, one of the things that we do is we have experts at the center to deal with kids with learning disabilities. All right, kids that can't read. All right, so some of the funding each year, we get a number of kids. We collaborate with other organizations too. Performance Initiatives, if you're aware of them, they have a really good thing that they do with kids with weightlifting and building their self-esteem. And we have 5 kids from Performance Initiatives come up to our summer school each year. Why is the summer school important? It's because some of the kids fall behind. These parents can't afford extra tutoring, and they can't afford getting expertise help, with their kids. All right, so we're there to help provide that. All the funding that we get goes right back into the community, right back to those people who show the need to have their kids there. I wanted to show you one thing that I passed out. We had a plan A and a plan B. I'm going to go with the plan B here, and part of it was to show what a learning disability is really like. And I passed these out, and I hope that you were able to get a copy. I've been working with kids with learning disabilities all my life. And in 1988, I got a thank you letter from a gentleman. I had come up to a school. I was working at a school for dyslexic kids, to serve only dyslexic kids. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about it because it relates back to some of the expertise that we have at Royce Learning Center. If you were struggling reading it, just hold it up to the light, like this, with the writing facing the light, and you can read it much more easily if you want to read along with me. It says, "Dear Ron and Bonnie," Bonnie is my wife. This was a boarding school I was working at the time. It says, "Thank you for your hospitality. I enjoyed my day at Kildonan so much. It was very moving to see the uneducatable become educatable. I hope you'll take me up on your offer of another visit to your school. I'd like to know your boys better. Isn't it nice to see the English language written in the correct direction? You've spent your lives looking at English written backwards. What a shame. Kindest regards." This guy spoke backwards. This is the most severe form of dyslexia I've ever seen. I haven't seen it since. He spoke backwards until he was 8 or 9 years old. And all of a sudden it took a medical doctor and a psychologist who got together to work with him. Name was Sam Orton and Anna Gillingham, and I'll speak just briefly about this Orton-Gillingham method that we use to teach adults and kids with. But they were able to figure out what was going on with this guy, and they came up with an approach to teach him, and so he started speaking correctly. And here's the next part that just wowed me. I was living a couple hours north of New York City at the time, and we get all the New York news stations and usually watch those in the evening. This guy's name was DeLoss Smith, and all of a sudden I'd be half falling asleep watching the news, and all of a sudden I hear DeLoss Smith. Well, he was part of the conference board, and that was this economic think tank in New York City. And if there was anything that people wanted to know, or the major news stations wanted people to know about the economy in New York City or around the country, they went to the conference board, and DeLoss Smith was the guy on TV speaking about it. So look how far that guy came. And if he hadn't gotten help, he probably would have been put in an institution someplace, because nobody would have been able to understand how he speaks. At least sometimes people can understand how he writes now. This was natural for him to write this way. I have letters, just because I'm in the business, people who write to him, same way, right to left. Right? And they're happy that they found somebody else that they can communicate with, and what I would say, or what they would say, would be a more normal way. This goes on and relates to what we do in our adult community education center also. We have about 300 adults a year, and this is why Royce was originally founded, that come through for many different reasons. Many of them come in wanting to get their GED. All right, many of them don't know how to read when they come in. Many of them are working on a workplace certificate, or the ASVAB, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. A lot of them are interested in being over a Hunter Army airfield. But they all come for one reason, is to get this education help. I go back, I told you about the school. It's not part of the one of the agencies. We do not get funding for that, but a lot of the expertise comes from the school. And we have trained all the adult teachers, volunteers over the years, and they're the ones that are working with the adults. Why the model is a little bit different, you say, well, they can go to Savannah Tech and work on their GED. They can go here or there and work on their GED. We have a program coordinator and 4 lead teachers. And can you imagine what it feels like if you can't read or you're really having difficulty working on math or something for a GED test, what it's like to go and ask for help like that. We have 40 volunteers. When we were talking about volunteerism, Terry was mentioning it earlier, many of them come through the United Way. They'll come in and work with the adults that we call learners. And they accept them wherever they are. We train these volunteers, and I have a lead teacher working with each of the classes each time. So if somebody comes in and they can't read, well, that's okay. We'll start working on it. There was a video we were hoping to show this evening. This was in the newspaper a couple of weeks ago on October 14th. It says, "You and United Way making a better life for everybody." And there's a guy named Frank Williams. There's a video United Way has on their site about it. It's called Mr. Bamboo. And he was 78 years old. And he worked out at the botanical gardens all his life, never missed a day of work. But he was also a very religious person. And he wanted to learn to read the Bible. And he never learned to read. They tell the whole story about this gentleman. He came to Royce this past year and sat down with the lead teacher and the volunteer, one of the nicest guys you could ever meet. And he said, "I just want to learn to read so I can read the Bible and make my attendance at church better." And if you met him, he'd make your heart melt. He's one of the reasons I like to get up in the morning and go to work. And there's people like Frank that come in every day. There's story after story after story that I can share with you. The single mother who came in to work, get her GED. She was a bright person. It took her about 6 months. She got her GED, then she enrolled in nursing school after that. There's a gentleman who came in, couldn't read. He got around by looking at landmarks going around Savannah. But he wanted to learn to read to his grandchildren. And he came in. And it probably took him a year, if I can remember back, and he learned to read and he was able to go home. That changes people's lives. When people get their GED, that changes their life. They can go out and they can get a better job. They're going to support their family more. They're going to become a contributing member, more of a contributing member of the local community here. They'll be giving back to the community. So there's a lot that goes into when you help people get on their feet. It goes a long way, right? And these adults go out and they can really start to make a difference with other people's lives. So I wanted to share those stories with you, and I could keep going. I call it a feel-good place to work. Because every time somebody passes a GED, they learn to read. We hear about it. The adults are located upstairs in our building. We go up, we have a celebration. We have a celebration at the end of each year for all the accomplishments that the adults make. Some of them want to come in and get their GED, and you realize all of a sudden that they're really not, they don't have the cognitive ability to really get that far, but we never say no to them. All right, because we know we can help them progress a little bit more. And some adults and kids, if you have the self-determination skills, maybe it doesn't look like they're cognitively able to do that, but if they work hard enough, they can. And that's another feel-good time. So once again, we're one of Royce Learning Center is one of 54 agencies. There's people out there, as Terry had mentioned, there's need of, it's a little different these days than others, but people need rent and food. Need shelter, first, and I think that is really important. And once we can get over this this big hump, I guess I would say, that's happening right now. Remember those who still need an education. Remember those who were left behind because they had a learning disability. The teachers don't know. With the kids, we can get testing done, and we can tell where they are, what's really going on with their educational background. With the adults who come walking through the door, we have no idea if they have a learning disability or not. So the volunteers and teachers are trained to be looking for certain things. How they're learning, how they're absorbing information. They'll take off from there. So it's really a tough rock to get over sometimes, and it takes some of the adults longer than others, depending on what that disability might be. And there's statistics out there that say that people that are illiterate, most of them, 50, 60, 70% have a learning disability, and that's probably why they dropped out of school in the first place. So as Terry mentioned, they're getting real close, especially with that Gulfstream contribution that just came in being at 93%. I'm surprised, I'm shocked. We make sure everybody in our workplace does give back to the community and to United Way each year. So I hope when you see somebody in need, or when you see someone from United Way helping to ask out, that you can pay it forward, as Terry has in his lifetime. And thank you so much for having me. I always enjoy going out and speaking about what Royce Learning Center does for the community. Thank you.